A lot of people doing email marketing think getting a higher open rate leads to more revenue. In this video, I'm going to show you why this is completely wrong and why getting a higher open rate might actually lead you to making less money. So first, you have to understand this. Getting a high open rate is less about what you do, but more about who you target. So most people focus on the wrong thing. You guys are focusing on the perfect subject line, so what you should write to pique people's curiosity enough so that they open, and oftentimes that's not the biggest variable at play. Now also, another thing people focus about is if their email includes text. So yes, this does plays a role, but not as big as you might think. And if they're getting like a low open rate, they might think they need to change their email frequency. Maybe they think they're emailing their list too much and that they should email less so that people open more. Again, this is not right. To get a high open rate with absolute certainty, it's more about the market. It's more about your audience and who you target. So for example, if you send an email to people who recently subscribed, who are on the fence about buying your product, so they visit your website, they start checkout, and people who just bought, for example, then you're by default gonna have a high open rate. So the biggest example of that is with people who just bought. If you wait one day and you send them an email with the subject line, your tracking link, is gonna have like an 85% open rate and a 50% click-through rate. So wonderful metric, but there's one problem about that. If you consider your whole list, only a tiny amount or like super engaged. So if you're trying to maximize your open rate at all costs, then you're going to cap your revenue, and it's not good if you're trying to maximize purely revenue. You're a business, you're trying to make revenue. It would be like only running retargeting ads. Now, yes, they have a higher ROAS, like this audience is more profitable, you should send as much as you can to them, but it's capping your potential because there's only a finite amount of people on your list that fit these particular criteria. So if you only retarget these people, then you squeeze the lifetime value out of them. So yes, it's good, but the rest of your email list that is less engaged also dies. Your open rate is highly correlated to the quality of the audience. Now, having an audience that is less ideal, quote unquote, doesn't mean that you can't sell to them. It just means that it requires more skills. But they're gonna open your email less than the audience that is super engaged. So let's look at it. You have to make them engage. And how do you do that? Well, you need to test different offers, right? The reason they're unengaged is because they haven't been responsive to the previous messages that you sent to them. So when you re-engage them, just target them, but with a different messaging, a different offer. Now, new angles. When I say a new angle is, for example, you as a brand, when people are buying your product, they always expect an end goal. But the way you advertise is you show them one pass. But a new angle is an alternative path that gets them to the same end goal, but framed differently. So they have to walk a separate path to get to that same end goal. And finally, better copywriting. Oftentimes, it's not about the angle, it's not about the offer, it's just because of how you communicate both of them. So if you're bad at copywriting or you can't engage people through text, inevitably, they're gonna be disengaged. So you need to have a baseline competence in copywriting. And I highly recommend the book Great Lead by Michael Masterson if you want to get into that and if you want to get better, because this will like teach you 80% of what you need to know about like how to engage people through text. And then if you do all of this correctly, then the unengaged people are going to become engaged. And then you have a bigger pool of people that are in your engaged audience or your engaged segment. And over time, you're going to go from the list on the left with a low open rate to the list on the right with a high open rate. And the reason why that is because you just have more engaged people proportionally. So again, this is the biggest misconception about getting a high open rate. People believe that they're getting a low opener because of the subject line or anything, but it's literally because their engaged audience is so small. If they emailed their list using the same process I just mentioned, they're going to go to the list on the right with more of an engaged audience proportionally and get a higher open rate as a result. And this is a quick example right here using numbers, right? Like here, you might target these people and get a 40% open rate. That's 20,000 people. But here, before, you might have 10,000 people in your engaged audience. And if you emailed them, you would have gotten like a 60% open rate. Now you might think it's great, 60 open rate sounds great on paper, but only then you're going to realize that it's 6,000 people and you're going to make way more revenue out of these 20,000 openers. Now in practice, increasing the amount of engaged people on your list and making them buy more so you get more revenue is actually extremely hard. You need to test with a lot of copywriting, a lot of design variation, and a lot of implementation within Klaviyo so you get more revenue. And if you're an e-commerce brand owner, you don't really have time to do that because you're focused either on paid ads or organic. That's why if you go to retainwithemails.com, first link in the comments or inside of the description, you can apply to work with us and we will guarantee that you add a minimum of $30,000 in new monthly revenue. We work on a pay on results basis, so you don't have to pay for something that doesn't generate you any results. If that's of interest, go there, retainwithemails.com, and apply to work with us. Thank you.